Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan, a WBKB News public affairs program. Insights deals with the issues affecting those within the community, as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights into Northeast Michigan.
Welcome to Insights. I'm Sherry Stewart. We know the coronavirus pandemic has greatly changed the way we live, work, and play. And for one group, it has greatly impacted their thoughts about where they'd like to live long term. And that's our seniors. So today we will be spending time at the Besser Living Community to find out more. But before we head there, we want to bring you our interview with a columnist for Kaiser Health News. She's also taking a look at this topic. Well, welcome, and joining me now is Judith Graham. She is a columnist with Kaiser Health News. Welcome.
I'm delighted to be here.
I am too. We really want to talk about this article that you wrote. It's entitled A Pandemic Upshot. Seniors are having second thoughts about where to live. And so we do want to let our viewers know that we have linked the article on our website so they can read that there. But let's talk about what you found in this demographic and their thoughts now on where they may want to live in response to the coronavirus pandemic.
Well, as you know, the pandemic is causing people to rethink everything and has upended everyone's lives. And a lot of older adults find themselves looking at transitioning as they move out of work and into retirement. Are they going to stay in their long-time homes? Do they want to move to a senior housing community? You know, as they become more frail, do they want to consider assisted living? And the pandemic is causing people to really reconsider things that they thought they might do in light of, you know, the lockdowns that we've seen in assisted living, the deaths in long-term care facilities. So that's, but there's no one size fits all response that people are pursuing.
Yeah, which I found that so really interesting. And just this is one of the quotes from their article. It says, "What I've learned during this pandemic is that personal relationships matter most to me, not place."
That was a very interesting, a woman in her, I believe, late 60s who lives alone in a 750-foot apartment in Chicago, in an apartment tower downtown. And she had moved there in her retirement, thinking that she would be in the midst of all the cultural opportunities that a great city has to offer. Of course, you know, like so many other places, people are not out and about in Chicago, and these cultural institutions are closed down. And she had found that her friends, many of whom were married, had sort of drawn inward and were not reaching out to her that much. So she was becoming more and more isolated in this, and realized that what she needed was the personal contact. So she's looking at a co-housing community, where a multi-generational co-housing community where people with young families, middle-aged, older adults live together. There's usually a communal dining room and joint activities of some sort. You retain your independence, and yet you're living in a community. She's begun researching that very actively, and there are more and more of these communities springing up across the country.
Yeah, and I was wondering that, and it seems like the writing that you do is so interesting as you focus on seniors. Are you finding that we are considering more multi-generational housing given this pandemic, and maybe just an economic reason behind it?
Well, I think the latest data from the Pew Research Foundation shows that more young adults are living with their parents than any time in history. And that's true for me. My daughter came home from New York City and has been living with me. And I think that the combination of the poor economy and the need for help on the part of older adults has led to a rise in these multi-generational households. I should say that some of what people told me for the article was that on the one hand, you have people who are living, trying to age in place, saying, I'm going to do that for as long as I possibly can, because I don't want to risk going into a setting where there are a lot of people and I might catch the virus.
Mhm.
And then you have people saying, oh my gosh, I stayed in my apartment too long. I need more help now. How do I figure out where to go and how it will be safe? So it cuts both ways.
Yeah, I found that so very interesting, and also interesting from the article. It looks obviously that children are really helping or being a part of that dialogue, I should say, in terms of where their parents may want to consider living long term. I found that that was really interesting in the article as well.
Yes, and unfortunately, that's oftentimes a point of conflict in families. You know, the older child, the adult child, says to mom or dad, you know, I think it's getting too hard for you to make it on your own. And mom or dad says, no, thank you very much. I'll do it the way I always have been. And especially during this time of the pandemic, those conversations can be really fraught. If the adult child feels that more help is necessary and a move into a facility is necessary.
And Judith, as you've continued to write and focus on this topic of seniors, what has been the most interesting thing that you've discovered as you delve into these different topics here?
Well, one of the key issues is how resilient many seniors are. That the value of a lifetime of experience teaches people how to get through crisis like this. And many of the old generation had been through World War II, had been through many other things, and they have actual skills and perspective and insight, and that the younger generations could benefit from, in terms of, talk to an older person. How is this for you? You
Yeah.
know, what have you learned over the course of your lifetime? Many of them have a this too shall pass perspective. You know, keep your eye focused on what's happening today, not tomorrow. Don't overreact. So I think that the resilience of the older population is oftentimes underestimated.
Well, I want to thank you, Judith, for spending time with us today. I'm so glad that we got a chance really to look a little bit more about your article. It was very interesting, and you pulled out a lot of things for people to think about. And again, I want to remind our viewers that they can actually can read that. I will have a link to it on our website. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Insights will return after these messages.
Well, welcome back to Insights, and joining me now is Andrew Karsten. He is the Community Director at the Besser Senior Living Community. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm
glad
so
to
glad.
be here.
I am glad that you're here today to talk about the community that just opened in February. You just had your grand opening in February. So let's talk all about that, how everything has gone since then. We know obviously that we've had a pandemic that we've been dealing with, and we'll get to that, of course. But just tell me about the facility.
Sure. The facility is, we have 48 units total. We have 20 on our memory care unit, which is a secured unit for severe Alzheimer's dementia patients. And then we also have our assisted living side of the facility, which we have 28 on that side.
And I see the sign out front that you're still accepting applications.
Absolutely.
So how is all of that going?
Slow but sure. Obviously, you know, with the current pandemic, a lot of families are, you know, keeping their loved ones at home for as long as possible, obviously due to visiting restrictions and so forth.
Yeah, and so that's what we just talked about in our first segment with Judith, which is what she found in her story and preparing for her stories, that some families and even some seniors are just kind of maybe rethinking where they want to go long term. What has been some of the feedback that you've gotten from residents that are actually here now?
Residents here, they really enjoy being with us. Obviously now we have started more small social group activities, which has been great. Small groups of communal dining and so forth in our dining room. And it's really nice to see more socialization, you know, between residents versus at the beginning of the pandemic, you know, we were very strict. You know, they had to remain in their apartments. They were, you know, dining in their apartments as well. So it's nice to slowly see, you know, a group social interaction resume.
And I know we'll talk a lot more about the social activities that you have going on, but what is life like on a daily basis for your residents? So is there a set schedule, or what is it like?
Not really. Obviously, a normal day for a resident is coming down for breakfast in our main dining room, going back to their room for a rest, and then about 10:30, Angie, our activities director, starts group exercise. And follows her group activity schedule.
Now, are those mandated, or do people have the choice to do?
No, they have the choice to come at their own will.
Now, what is there an age? What is the age that starts for a facility like this?
Sure, 55 and older.
Okay, 55 and older. Okay.
Correct.
So, what do you like most, Andrew, about being here? It seems like you really have a busy job.
I do. You know, I enjoy interacting with my residents. You know, it's just wonderful seeing smiling faces every day. You know, and just the care side, you know, of what we offer.
Now, do most of your residents come from the Alpena area, or some come from out of state to reside here?
Surprisingly, it's about 50-50.
Really?
You know, I've have a couple move-ins scheduled for the beginning of next month, one from Virginia and one from Maine.
Oh my.
But I've had a lot of out-of-state inquiries.
Really?
Where families are retiring and want to bring their loved ones with them back to the Alpena area, which is great to see.
That is nice. That's a very nice, so you'll have your loved ones here as you transition to another I guess stage of life, if you will. Now, is there a typical resident that you would say, or do they just span the gamut?
You know, it's across the board. You know, I have individuals, you know, from a younger age group, you know, 65 and older, you know, all the way to a person in their 90s coming to us. So, you know, it's a wide variety of age range.
And I would imagine that different age range would be, I guess, very helpful for people in terms of, you know, social interaction.
Sure, absolutely.
Just like, you know, you share stories from different generations, it's almost similar, would you think?
Yes, absolutely.
Now, so what are some of the things that you have planned for the end of the year? I know that we just recently started getting back to allowing visitors, and there's some restrictions with that. So what are some of the things that you have planned?
Sure. As far as we were going to do a fall open house, depending on, you know, if restrictions are lifted, that is still in the works. We do have a virtual health fair that we'll probably offer in the next month or so. Where, you know, residents, you know, can provide information and so forth, and like, you know, therapy services, and obviously with Mid-Michigan Home Health offering services to our facility as well.
Now tell me about some of the amenities inside. So what is the square footage? What is it looking like? What are you getting for your monies?
Sure. So the building itself is 42,000 square feet. We have 2 salons. We have an in-house beautician.
Oh, nice.
Obviously our activities director as well, that provides activities on a daily basis. All day long. We do have an executive chef on board providing home-cooked meals, changing our menus weekly.
And what does some of that look like?
It looks delicious. It looks delicious.
And so what else is there in terms of laundry facilities? Is that obviously on site?
Absolutely. We provide daily laundry and daily housekeeping to all our residents. Obviously, during this pandemic, housekeeping is a #1 priority here in keeping our residents safe. All our communal areas and common areas are sanitized between 5 and 7 times a day. All touchable surfaces, door handles, countertops as well.
And I know, as we just said earlier, that we've just now started to slowly get back into allowing visitors with those restrictions. How tough has this pandemic, even before we got to that stage, how tough was that on not only your residents, but also your staff?
You know, it's taken a great toll over the past couple months on our residents, you know, mainly emotionally, not seeing family members, a lot of depressional issues and so forth, which is sad to see. But, you know, at the beginning, you know, doing FaceTime and Zoom meetings with family, you know, it got us through, and it's nice to see now, you know, outdoor interaction and so forth, you know, where we can have outdoor visits with family members.
And I would imagine some, you know, we're actually zoomed out ourselves, we will say, but I would imagine that type of technology is probably new for a lot of the residents. How was that received?
Sure, it was received well. Angie, our activities director, you know, always facilitated, you know, all the virtual meetings and so forth. So we got through it. It worked out good, but definitely different for them, you know. A lot of them here don't have cell phones or text or anything like that. But we got through.
I'm glad to hear that. Well, Andrew, we will take a break and we will be back with more of Insights right after this.
Insights will return after these messages.
Well, welcome back to Insights, and we're continuing our conversation with Andrew Karsten, the Community Director at the Besser Senior Living Community right here in Alpena. And so I know that you have some great activities coming up for your residents, so tell me about that. And also I know that we've done some alterations with the drive-by activities, so just tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, absolutely. A lot of activities that Angie Reed, she's our Activities Director here at Besser. She does a monthly calendar.
Okay.
So residents know on a daily basis on what we offer, starting out with morning exercise in the morning, all the way up until movies in the afternoon, including an outdoor garden that we recently did this summer. Was a great hit with all residents, and they got to interact and so forth.
And gardening is so therapeutic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So what types of things did they grow? Was it plants? Is it fruits and vegetables?
Fruits and vegetables and flowers as well.
Oh.
So yes, it turned out very well.
I bet it did.
Yeah.
I bet it did. Now, what is some of the feedback that your residents give when you do the activities? Do they get to suggest activities?
Yes,
or?
they do. Angie does a resident meeting once a month, which we include, you know, activity suggestions as well as dining suggestions for our chef as well.
Okay, so there's a lot of input that the residents get to.
Absolutely.
And I think that's probably important for independence, having some sense of independence in your life.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I strive to keep everybody, including our staff, you know, we're all a family here at Besser. You know, we work in your home, and, you know, that's what we strive to focus on, and what your needs are and your requests are, and to meet those requests.
I love how you say that we work in your home.
Correct.
So that people have that ownership that you're not visiting us, we're visiting you. Now, I know we're a couple months out and we're talking about activities, but what do you think the holidays will look like here as we get even into the Thanksgiving and Christmas? What do you think you might have on the calendar for that?
I believe Angie's going to do, you know, centerpiece Thanksgiving decorations.
Oh, nice.
As we move into Christmas, my plan is to have a very large Christmas tree in our lobby area, so we'll be decorating that as well and include that as an activity.
I bet that'd be
fun. So where
fun.
we keep our residents involved, and it's not where management is setting everything up and, you know, providing that to them. I really like the involvement of our residents.
I love that you guys do that. Now tell me, Andrew, going forward, and there's been so many learnings tied to this whole pandemic, what are some of the new things that not only Besser, do you think this industry will, I guess, adopt to keep residents safe as we realize how important that is?
Sure. You know, obviously our residents, you know, daily housekeeping, you know, in my mind is a big priority in their apartments. Obviously, we've adapted, you know, 2-hour, you know, health screenings and so forth, as well as on shift changes as well, and all vitals taken, and, you know, monitoring the health of our residents on a daily basis.
As families are getting ready to transition, or even individuals maybe to a facility like this, what are some of the questions that you think that they should be asking?
Sure. Obviously, I think activities and dining is a great one, but it all goes back to the safety of our residents and, you know, what our protocols are, you know, during this pandemic. Obviously, social distancing, you know, wearing face coverings and so forth.
All right. Well, I have really enjoyed talking with you. Again, I know the grand opening was earlier this year, but this is actually my first time getting a chance to sit down and talk with you. And I'm glad to know that so many safety precautions and all that's necessary to keep the residents safe is actually happening. That's great.
Welcome.
I'm sure our viewers want to know that.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome.
Well, that'll do it for this week's episode of Insights. If you have a question, comment, or story idea, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at news@wbkb11.com. I'm Sherry Stewart. Thank you again for watching.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.